I'm Kier.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Jay from Gallifrey Public Radio,
a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the one you're listening to right now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3,
2,
1. You're listening to Crimson Comet, a fan podcast about the TV show dedicated to the Scarlet Speedster himself, CW's The Flash. Welcome to episode 18 of Crimson Comet. This week we'll be discussing the Justice League Season 2, episodes 11 and 12, A Better World. I'm your host, Haley, aka Awesome Engineering Girl.
I'm John, aka Lobster.
And I'm Will, aka Rum Daddy. And joining us today, our special guest, George. Welcome, George.
Hello, hello. Happy to be here.
What, you guys don't say hello to George?
Glad to have you with us, George. Hello, George. Fuck you, Will.
Welcome. Welcome to the Flash Cave. What is it? Where are we?
Well, what do you store a flash in? Welcome to the bulb.
That's our new recording studio is going to be called The Bulb.
Yeah, you know, Arrow's got the quiver, Batman's got the cave, Flash has the bulb.
Anyway, we're here to talk about the show, the 2 episodes from Justice League that we all saw.
Because the CW decided we needed a 3-week break as soon as we got back from hiatus. So, woot, cartoons.
Well, it's all about
Sweeps.
Sweeps, yeah.
Yeah.
They had what were they, George? They were...
No, February is usually sweeps, and I guess some of them ran into that first week of March, but you're absolutely right. Then they go on hiatus. And then May is sweeps, late April, May.
Yeah.
So it's all about,
And
ratings.
It's all about ratings. And
timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they all end on a big cliffhanger so that you stay tuned through the summer.
So I know that we were on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. last week talking about Agent Carter. So what's the sense in running a series during that traditional hiatus period when they wouldn't be doing sweeps?
What is the sense running? I see. Well, I mean, I think writers will probably look towards, when is this airing? And they do kind of plan ahead, obviously. And then I think if the show is airing during it, right, I think it's build up. That's the time to lay the groundwork and set it up so you pay it off in sweeps kind of thing.
Okay, all right.
But I missed you guys on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. I wish I could have done it. I was so sick that day. But I did listen, and it was fantastic.
Well, don't worry. John stepped up his motherfucker game to fill in for you.
I did. I had to. I still haven't listened to that. I bet it's awesome.
It's awesome. There's a lot of beeps.
Yeah, a lot more beeps than we usually have in our podcasts.
That's great.
I'm sure SP was going nuts, hitting the red button. No!
Yeah, I was sending him the files, and I was like, sorry, dude, you've got a lot of editing ahead of you. Because, yeah, that's not the kind of show we have.
Still a great show.
It is. It is a good show. And you can listen to it with the kids.
Yes, and I was laughing. I was LOLing in my car as I heard it.
Well, if you'd like to get in contact with us, you can visit our website, crimsoncometpodcast.com. And we're on Twitter, @CrimsonPodcast. Facebook, Crimson Comet Podcast, or you can leave us a voicemail, 423-FLASH53. That's 423-352-7453. And we have an email, crimsoncomet@gonnageek.com, so you can send us emails now. And then our forums are always available, forums.gonnageek.com, or Gonna Geek on the Tapatalk app.
Tapatalk.
Tap-a-tuck, tap-tap-tap-tap-tap-tap-tap.
You can reach us anywhere.
Right.
You
Almost.
guys are very connected.
Right,
Very
and
connected.
we've had this for a while, a YouTube channel, which up to this point has just included our podcasts with our logo showing for the video part of it. So you can watch us there if you'd like to. But I am going to Planet Comic-Con next weekend, and I'm going to record as many panels as I'm allowed to before they kick me out of the building. So a lot of that content will be going up on our YouTube channel as well in the next couple of weeks. So exciting stuff coming, guys.
Atta girl. That's a great idea, especially to announce it to the world before you go there.
Right?
But you're going to Planet Comic-Con, and then on March 14th, I'm going to go to the Paley Fest Arrow and Flash panel here in LA.
Right.
And that'll be exciting. I don't know. I'm not going to have to record anything because they're doing a live feed online, and immediately following it, it'll be on YouTube anyway. But
Right.
we'll talk about it at that time at some point. We'll do the Wayback Machine and talk about it. And last year when I did the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel, I interviewed some kids who were sitting around me, and it was fun, and we played that. So maybe I'll be able to get some interviews of some people from the audience. So
Yeah, and I'll probably do the same thing while I'm at this con. I'll talk to some of the other people that are just attending it. So we'll have that to include, either in an upcoming episode or on the YouTube channel somewhere.
So, Haley, did we get any feedback this week?
We did have a little bit of feedback this week. Listener Coach Hill on Twitter told us that he got a good buy at Walmart this week. He's got the original Flash series that he got for under $10.
Ooh,
so
that's a good deal.
It is, and going to be very useful this summer for the plans we've got for the podcast.
Yes, it will.
Yes.
Interesting. What are those plans?
We have plans to rewatch the 1990s series.
Yes. I'm so excited.
And we don't know exactly what format we're going to be watching it on, but we are going to be rewatching and commenting about every episode.
And hairstyles and costume choices and technology.
Yeah, and I imagine we'll mostly be doing, just discussions after like we do with the normal episode of The Flash, but I can't imagine we're not going to do any riff tracks of some of these episodes.
Oh, we're going to have to.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do some riff tracks.
I think we should let the fans choose that one.
Yeah.
Which episode of the original series, those of you who've seen it, do you want us to do a live commentary of?
That's a brilliant, brilliant idea.
Did they paint that costume onto him?
No, it's got padding. Come
okay.
on.
Okay, they just built his body into the suit. I got it.
It's like the Halloween costumes they give out, or
Okay.
they make these days, where the kids have like crazy pecs.
Okay. Is that what the kids are doing these days?
Because nobody's chest muscles make those ripples.
Except for Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, well, Hugh Jackman.
And then on Facebook, after we posted our latest episode over the last episode of The Flash, James said, "So I've been going on the assumption that Wells is from the future, back here to do whatever he's back here to do. The other theory I'm using is that the Reverse Flash is someone that Wells is eventually going to take the yellow suit from, sometime in the future. The yellow suit is there from 2 different points in time. That's how the Reverse Flash beat up Wells."
We're still trying to get our heads wrapped around the whole, how did the Reverse Flash beat up Wells when he was inside that bubble?
So it's either 2 different people as the Reverse Flash, or Wells doesn't mind taking a hit for his master plan, and it's 2 different points of him from different points in his timeline. I don't know. It's all very confusing.
But that would create a paradox, as we all know.
No, it doesn't. You can punch yourself in the face without it being a paradox.
Maybe he punched him so hard his grandkids felt it.
Wait, I'm sorry, really quick. When was he in the bubble again? I saw the show, but...
This was in the mid-season finale.
Yes, the man in the yellow suit.
Yeah, it was called The Man in the Yellow
And
Suit.
they were trapping the Reverse Flash in like a special bubble that Cisco'd, and then he pulled Wells into that bubble and beat him up.
Right, okay, now I got it. I remember that.
And we don't know how that could be possible if Wells is the Reverse Flash.
Wells seems like the kind of guy that would beat himself up.
Right. If it's part of his master plan, he has no problem punching himself in the face.
But how could the 2 people exist in the same time and space?
It's him from different points in his time stream came back to this point in time for his master plan.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I still think it creates a paradox, but...
Like Marty McFly was at the whatever under the sea dance.
Oh,
in 2 places.
yeah, Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Yeah.
And he almost had sex with his mother, which would have been
Mr.
really
I'm
creepy.
my own grandpa.
That's some fucked up shit.
It was the 80s. Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. So we watched something this week, didn't we?
Did we? Did we watch something?
We did. We had to
Yeah,
fill
we
the
did.
time with something.
Well, I made George watch something, so we did do something. There was a thing.
I watched it.
And what'd you think, George?
We watched, what was it?
The Justice League cartoon that started in 2001. We watched episodes 11 and 12 from season 2, A Better World.
Right. I was telling Wilfredo before this, honestly, this is kind of a really big seminal episode and what they're talking about and what they laid down and what actually affected DC Comics running straight through the aughts or the O's or whatever you want to call them that decade. Honestly, like it's a big theme that they're talking about and it's kind of interesting. And again, I love when the animated shows do something so creative that it bleeds back into the comic world.
Right.
And I think they did that. And this is actually a big episode.
So I'm confused a little bit because when I saw this, I'm like, is this Bizarro World? But it's not Bizarro World. You were telling me earlier about it.
Well, I mean, when you watch the first few minutes of the
Right.
first episode, you're like, what's happening? But you realize that's actually a totally different universe, different worlds kind of thing. And then they play it out and they reveal what the story is. And it's really interesting. So yeah, this is a alternate universe kind of thing, which DC loves to do. There's a million different universes.
Multiverse.
Yeah, and actually, John, did you know they had, the Multiversity, which is happening now in comics, and in April is going to be this big thing called Convergence, where they're going back to every multiple universe thing they ever did. And Grant Morrison just added this cartoon, the Justice Lords, into the mainstream comic line, which is kind of interesting that he brought it forward.
Well, isn't this just an excuse to reboot their universe again?
Well, and Marvel's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's all to bring in new viewers, new readers, because when you go into this comic shop and you see, 500, 600, whatever is the number on the cover of the book, you're like, I don't think I'm going to start with that. Let me go grab an issue of Saga or The Walking Dead.
You want to go all the way back to the beginning and then read it in order.
Right. You gotta start at number 1 in 1962 or 35 or whatever. Just start at the beginning, work your way through. It's fine, guys. Doesn't take that long.
Well, what you don't know about Haley is that Haley is one of these completionists where she will not pick up something in the middle. She has to go back to the very first episode or the very first issue and start reading it all the way through because she doesn't want to, somewhere in the middle, not know the history of something. So she has to go all the way from the beginning. And where are you right now with the DC and the Marvel Universe comic readings?
DC, I'm still in 1935 because I haven't been reading a whole lot of that. But Marvel, I'm up to 1972.
Oh, there you go.
But you're still not on the new X-Men yet with
No.
She's still...
No, that restarts with Giant Size X-Men number 1 in 1975. Yep, I'm looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to that one for a long time. But I'm up to... Well, no, I'm still in 1963 with Doctor Who.
Wait, you're going back to... Well, no, Doctor Who started in 1963, 64?
Yeah.
3 with... But... Those are, you don't have to go all the way back with Doctor Who.
Yeah, you do. You can't, you can't just jump in the middle of something. That is crazy talk.
Well, most of the world has with the reboot.
Well, I did. I started with the reboot. I did.
Right.
Because that is a clear starting point.
Yeah.
But then I had to go back and see the beginning, too.
Akira will say that I'm wrong, but he says I'm wrong about everything, so I really don't give a fuck. But if you understand the lore, you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning of Doctor Who. You just have to watch, key episodes, maybe 1 or 2 of the William Hartnell, and then of the second Doctor and third Doctor. And it gets interesting, towards the end of Jon Pertwee. And I'm a huge Tom Baker fan, but you don't have to watch every Tom Baker episode. There's, I could give you a list of, to be complete, 6 episodes to watch, 7 of Tom, Well, no, you have to watch The Key of Time because that's important. But, you don't have to. And as far as I'm concerned, you could skip all of number 8.
Well, if I felt like it was a chore, I wouldn't do it. But I'm enjoying it. I don't have a lot of time. I enjoy reading the old comics. I enjoy watching these old episodes of TV. It's corny and the effects are terrible and it's in black and white, but the stories are either interesting or fun. And so it's just a fun way to do it. And there's so much more material to experience and enjoy if you do it like that.
That's true. I just don't have enough time left in my life.
I will tell anybody, if you feel like reading 50 years of comics is a chore and an obligation, don't do it because it's not supposed to be that. But if you can go back to a comic from 1964 and be like, oh, this is really interesting. It's cool to see how they've gone from this to where things are today. Then yeah, it's a fun way to experience the universe.
And also, I always thought that comic books are a great reflection of where the country stood politically at that time.
It is. Because, so you start Fantastic Four number 1 in 1962, and there are no black characters at all. And there's one female superhero who is really just a damsel in distress in spandex. And you see them grow over just the decade I've read so far to, you start seeing, background characters that are black. And then you see Black Panther come along, and then you see Falcon come along, and you see them start to develop the female superheroes from just being the love interest to actually being characters. And it's cool to see that growth.
Absolutely. I mean, even most recently in X-Men, we just had our first gay marriage.
But I was going to say, but I agree. But what's also interesting is that what I love about history of comics and why they endure is that you're right, as much as they evolve and they should evolve, and that's amazing. But I do love also when they, out of nowhere, reference something as far back as 62. Maybe it's something so small, like Mole Man, not him, he's been bigger, but something so small where they're like, oh, that. And you're like, holy cow, that was from 40 years ago. And they make it work today. Like, I love, that's a respect to that history, and I think it's really awesome when they do that stuff.
Right. And I want to unpack this whole, like, multiverse thing because it plays a role in these episodes, but I kind of think it's going to play a role in The Flash as well. And we saw it with the thing that we just watched on our last hiatus, The Flashpoint Paradox, which, again, takes, like, a very dark, almost like Watchmen turn, like this one did.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes back to both of them hinge on the Flash, because in this one, the Flash is like the conscience of the Justice League.
Right.
And in Flashpoint, he's like kind of the glue that holds the multiverse together. Like the whole DC universe hinges on him, I guess, letting his mother die. And I feel like they're ramping up that way with the TV show that's on right now. So
Right. Because, I mean, we're already seeing him kind of play Ollie's conscience in reining him in.
Right.
Right. And the crossovers when he goes to Starling City.
But actually, you know, can I just comment? What's interesting is that in this Justice League show that we watched, that's actually Wally West, not Barry Allen.
Oh,
It's a
true.
different Flash.
And I think why the Flash works always, and that's what DC does so well over the years, and they're doing it in the TV show as well, is that positive spirit. Even though it's a different guy, whether it's Bart Connor or Jay Garrick or Barry or Wally, it's still generally the same spirit of that hero, and I think that's what translates and constantly works across all these mediums, and I think that's what's great.
He's their Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
That's why he's got the little antennas on his ear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God he's a Jiminy Cricket on this show and not Walking Dead, because we see what happens to the conscience of the group on The Walking Dead every week.
Dead.
I know. Are you really worried about Michonne right now?
I'm really worried about Michonne right now. Because she's like, oh my God. Okay, that's another podcast, and we'll talk about that.
That's Walking the Walking Dead on Gonna Geek Network.
Carol is totally safe right now because she's being all duplicitous.
Right. Okay, yeah. Real sidebar. For the longest time, everyone's like, who's the next one to die? I'm like, it's going to be Carol. And I was like, no, it's not. I'm like, it's going to be Carol. Because I felt like Carol's story arc was done. But now that Carol is like just completely faking who she is, I'm like, oh yeah, she's safe.
that blue sweater was awesome.
The blue sweater was amazing.
She's going to go to the PTA meeting and then
Junior League.
talk to the HOA.
That was cute.
And then I loved how goofy she looked putting her Gigantor gun down. Like, oh, silly me. Oh,
this
I don't
thing
know.
is so heavy. I need like some big strong man to come help me with it. Okay, so Justice League, guys.
Justice League, yes.
So Justice League, right.
Okay, who had seen this episode before? I had.
I really haven't watched any of these.
Okay.
Like, I missed, like, I guess I was in late high school, college when these were on, so it just wasn't like on.
Well, I mean, I mainlined them earlier this year.
Well, no, I know, but like I haven't gone back to check them out, and I didn't watch them when they were on.
Mhm.
Like I watched the Batman animated series and stuff when that was on, and there's a lot of echoes to that. But like I love these stories, and I think I said it when we did Flashpoint that I love like the darkest timeline stories.
Yes.
Or like the dark
Right.
future or something like that. And this was fantastic. I
Right.
really, really enjoyed where they went with these characters.
Okay, and you hadn't seen it, Will?
No, this is the first time I saw it, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah, just the yin and yang of the characters and where they were going with it and the different points of view and just the little nuances of what if you had taken a different choice
Okay.
because you really wanted to do something you didn't, but what if you actually did it? So
Okay, and then George, you had seen this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Before, yeah.
All right, so then John and Will, I will ask you, what did you guys think of the opening of this episode?
I was confused because the whole opening, I'm like, all right, so Lex Luthor is the president.
Right.
And suddenly Soupy is all like taking, not vengeance, but he's like, he lobotomizes him and
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't lobotomize him. He melts him.
Kills him.
he kills him.
He cooks him. He's a crispy critter.
Do you smell what Soups is cooking?
That's right. That's right. He kills him. And he's fine with it. And he's totally fine with it. Like everyone's like, are you okay? He's like, I'm great. He's
Well,
fine with
something
it.
just snapped
Right.
in him.
Because,
Yeah.
Lex has that long conversation about how he'll never do anything because he's the hero and he loves being the hero. And he's like, yes, I did love being the hero.
Yeah.
And then kills
And
him.
let's be clear, what is Lex Luthor about to do?
Blow up probably the planet is what it looks
Yeah,
like.
his finger is hovering over the red button. He's about to launch nuclear war.
Right, he's probably going to launch the nukes at Russia, so Russia has to launch
Right.
them back at us.
Yeah.
And it becomes a game of tic-tac-toe.
He's like, everyone's going, like, they're all going to burn. I mean, he's basically the Mad King, in Game of Thrones.
Right.
And Superman has to play Kingslayer at this point.
Right.
All right, so here's where I have a question. The opening scene that we're watching, is that our universe?
No.
Or is that the alternate universe?
Alternate. That's the alternate universe.
That's the beginning of the alternate universe, but it's starting from the same point.
Flash has already been dead for some point, though, and that's what is the seed of this universe being different from ours, is he's not there to rein in Superman and stuff.
Okay,
right,
that's
but
why
the way they're telling the story, you don't necessarily know that. It unfolds later.
Right.
You would look back and be like, oh, that was never where we were.
Okay, that's why I was confused, because they were all wearing the traditional uniforms.
Right. So you would assume this is shortly after Flash died, and I believe it's implied at some point that Lex is responsible for Flash's death.
Oh,
yeah.
See,
I can't remember.
The problem is that I didn't see the whole series. We just jumped into 2 episodes within the series, and I think that's where I get.
That's not part of the series. Like, this episode starts, and you don't know that it's starting from that perspective.
Right, because I mainstreamed this series, and at the beginning, I'm like, oh, they're just jumping in the middle of the action. They do that sometimes, and then it's like Superman's acting weird.
Yeah.
And then he kills Lex Luthor, and you're like, huh.
What?
And then you've got, 30 seconds or whatever to think about, while the credits are rolling.
Right.
Right. The very long credits.
And a lot of sci-fi shows do that. I feel like Star Trek Voyager did it.
Stargate.
And Stargate do it all the time, where, like, you start in the parallel universe, and you don't know it's a parallel universe, and then weird stuff happens, and then they, like, smash cut to the credits, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that
Totally.
That explains a lot then. Because of the fact that they were in the traditional uniforms, I was like, I don't get it. But then that's the past.
2 years later.
Gotcha.
And I will tell you, this comes back, and actually not even this series, when they do the Justice League Unlimited series, and Lex Luthor at some point is running for president. I don't remember if he actually ends up getting elected. But they look at this parallel timeline, and they're like, we need to start keeping a closer eye on the Justice League because things are starting to unfold in our world the same way they did in this other world. And for some reason, they've got video of Superman killing President Lex Luthor. And it sets into motion a lot of events in the second cartoon series.
And in comics in general. I mean, there was when I watched this, the first thing I thought of was there was a comic called Identity Crisis in 2004. I don't know if you guys ever read it.
I'll get to that eventually.
She's still in 74, so maybe not. But it's fantastic, and it's ironically a year after the show that we're talking about, and it's maybe inspired. It's that same question with that power, and what do you do? And then, just without spoiler, but in that comic, Zatna, the magician girl, she starts mind wiping villains to set them on their path, and it's kind of up this alley of this whole, with our power, what if we did X and set things into a certain motion because we can, and not because we're being good. And I just thought again, like I said, this episode it's a Saturday morning cartoon or whatever, but it's laying down some major stuff, as Haley just mentioned. Like, this goes forward a lot.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating. That's why I'm really loving, both DC and Marvel do crazy shit like this. Mm-hmm. And the whole world of comic books and cartoons being melded together and having these huge story arcs is just fascinating to watch and see unfold.
Right. And like I've said, for comic books, I'm going back to the beginning. So the way I experience most of the modern stories is through, the cartoon television shows and the cartoon movies and stuff that they put out. And it's just a really interesting take on some deeper storylines, the way we're presenting them to children. Yeah.
Absolutely. I found, we're finding a lot of stuff on Netflix, but I found who has the biggest library is Amazon. And I went through the Amazon library and have just checkpointed all these Amazon animated features that I really want to see, and they're all lined up in my queue. One of them that I bought was The Dark Knight. It's like 5 hours.
Animated.
The animated.
Yeah. Huh.
The Dark Knight animated.
Is that the Dark Knight one that they split into 2 movies?
Yes.
Okay.
They split into 2 different movies, and it's the Frank Miller Dark Knight.
And that's the only one of the DC features that is a continuous story. All the others are like standalone films. They don't all exist in the same universe.
Gotcha.
So it's like you'll see a movie and you'll be like, oh, I can't wait to experience more of this universe. And then it's like, oh, nope, the next one's different.
Oh, okay. Follow that.
Yeah.
But, back to the episode.
Okay, I'll say something while we're still kind of talking about the beginning before we move on.
Yeah, no, please.
Does it ever feel to you like comics continuously exist in the 80s? Because
Yeah.
well, because
It's the shoulder pads.
right, well that too.
Yeah.
But no, because he's getting ready to start a nuclear war, and the only place we could start a nuclear war with is Russia, and that is
Right.
very much in the Cold War. And I think
True.
a lot of people will say 80s was kind of the height of comic book storylines and stuff like that.
Well, and again, it's Watchmen territory too.
Right.
So, I mean, this is covering a very similar idea of like, should the people with the most power be the ones that are in control? And the people with the most power in this universe are the superheroes,
The Justice Lords,
the Justice Lords. I love that skip in time,
right?
and you're still trying to like figure stuff out. You don't,
Yeah, and you're still at that point thinking this is our Justice League, and it's 2 years
Right.
later now.
Right. They got
Right.
they got new duds. That's okay. You're trying to figure stuff out, and you don't necessarily realize that they're the bad guys until they get to the demonstration at Smallville University.
Right.
When they show up, people start running.
And kind of when Soups is having his conversation with the president, and they're talking about elections, a fall tradition.
It's a fall tradition, like football and Halloween.
Who is George Bush, by the
Right.
way. They tell you
Yeah.
George Bush, yeah.
Yeah. And then they go to the demonstration, and it's obviously the same crowd that's doing Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
But they're cleaner. They've all had showers.
Right. Well, they're not in week 4 of the protest.
This was 2001, though, right? Too.
2003, I think, is when this aired.
2003.
This is well before that.
But it's post 9/11 too, so I mean, there's still kind of an unease
Right.
as well. Like, this is the Patriot Act. This is like that period in time. There was still a lot of protests.
Right. And so in 2003, we're just getting to the beginning of the Iraq War,
Right.
and we're into the war in Afghanistan.
This is preemptive strike
Right.
territory. So I
Right.
mean, it's still pretty culturally relevant to have this kind of like thematic discussion of might versus right.
And it's interesting the way they're able to parallel stories that they might have told in the 70s, which were encapsulated in a Vietnam War storyline. But those stories start to translate again when we get into the beginning of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. So they can start reusing some of those storylines when they tell them as cartoons.
I will say, to make it lighter, I did think it was kind of funny that when Lantern and Hawkgirl are looking at that crowd in Smallville, and she says, wow, they used to like us, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then they have this weird moment where he's like, what did he say? He's like,
Oh, I wrote that down in my notes.
yeah, and she's, yeah, do you sleep better now? And he's like, I do. I was like,
Uh-huh.
what? These two are getting it on.
Right?
Okay. Right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I wrote that Green Lantern. I wrote that like it was one of these super cliche. He has to tell his heartache story to Hawkgirl because all of a sudden he's like,
How you
"You
doing?
want to talk about fear? I'll tell you about fear." When I was a kid, and I'm just like, "Oh, geez, here we go again." Yeah.
So they say the disturbance is in Superman's old hometown. Do they know his secret identity at this point?
At this point, I don't think it matters if his identity is secret or not, because he
Yeah.
is the ultimate power in this world.
Right.
And he's got Lois Lane locked up in an apartment somewhere.
No kidding. That was creepy.
And he just gets to kind of like go and play house, but then all they do is fight.
Right.
Like mommy and daddy.
But it was
fighting.
kind of funny. Like, he was so, like, I mean, Lois is the voice of right and whatever, which is awesome. But he also treats her like, oh, you nagging old wife. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, not this old chestnut again.
I know.
Listen, little lady, the big men will make the decisions, and you just stay here and enjoy dinner.
It's
The
a weird
soup is
scene.
cold. It's gazpacho. It's supposed to be cold.
Well, as a quick thing, and then, again, as a more general thing, I think Superman, I love Superman, but I think it's so interesting that they have been struggling for decades how to handle him. And I think it's funny in the 2000s and in this early time, they started to talk about as the ultimate power, as the nuclear weapon, as being out of control. What does he do and how do we tame him? And it's really interesting, I think. And again, in this episode is like these germs of, they're always like, how do we make Superman now? And it's just really interesting. I don't know.
The problem with Superman has always been that he's so powerful, and then he's so good. So it's like, what is the conflict with him?
Mm-hmm.
Marvel, they'll have people that are super powerful, but then they waffle between dark and good. And then they'll have someone like Cap, who's like super good, but he's not the most powerful guy there. But Superman is so powerful and so good. What do you do with him? And I think in the 90s and in the 2000s especially, they just started exploring, well, what if he's not so good all the time? What if he is tempted by how powerful he is?
He never earned his first merit badge, so...
Right. That was such a good line.
Hey, by the way, not for anything, but the Justice Lord costumes were
cool.
so much better than our Justice League.
They were really cool.
Except for Wonder Woman's haircut.
Yeah.
I've always hated that haircut. Like, longer or shorter. But that length, ugh.
But her jumpsuit,
that was
much
cool.
better than...
But do you remember when they changed her suit a couple years ago? And it was like this huge to-do.
Yeah.
And ironically, I dare say this was before that. They actually put her in pants.
You're right. It's
just so funny that it was such a thing.
Are you talking about when they had the pilot TV show for NBC?
No. In the comics, they actually changed her outfit. There was a thing where they put her in pants, and people were in an uproar. But it's funny that here's something a few years before that, I think, where they already did it. Yeah.
Yeah, but they made sure to say it was a parallel timeline, so that's why.
Right. Doesn't count.
So it doesn't count. Right. But I'm really digging on Superman's black and white outfit. You know.
Todd.
Yeah, it's cool.
I just put it in the show notes. The costumes.
I thought it was great. But on that vein, you saw that this week they posted a picture of the new Supergirl outfit for CBS.
Are we going to talk about that now? That's like a whole podcast.
I know, right? But I was just like, I don't know if you saw it, but it's just like basically the Superman outfit.
It's kind of like the coloration that they used for the Zack Snyder Superman movie, but a skirt.
But a leather skirt, but a skirt. Or pleather. And a shorter cape.
Yeah, it's like latexy, green,
And it does the same kind of darkening of all the colors. Like, nothing can be bright and colorful. Right. It's all got to be a little darker.
Well, we talked about how much hatred I have for Zack Snyder.
Right.
Well, but you know, there's a great fashion blog called Tom and Lorenzo, and they reviewed this look. But they had a great note. They were like, we can't wait to see her, flying with that skirt. Like, I want to see, is it going to be flying up? What's her underwear? Like, what is she? You know what I mean? Well, but seriously. Like,
I had this conversation with some friends. I was like, it's a lose-lose situation as far as the skirt goes. If they change it, the comic book hardcore fans are going to be up in arms like, oh, that's not the way her costume's supposed to look. And then if they leave it, people are like, oh, the skirt is dated, or it's misogynistic or something like that. Yeah. Like, there is no way they can possibly win as far as the skirt goes.
No, agreed. I mean, you're right. It is the classic.
I mean, there are other Supergirl costumes that aren't like an exact feminized copy of Superman's. Like, there's the white t-shirt one. Like, there's other ways that they could kind of go with it. And I remember reading somewhere that in the promotional materials, she's supposed to, like, meet up with a fashion designer who, like, designs the costume.
That's hysterical.
Like, it just doesn't seem like that's what they come up with.
A fashion designer did not design that.
Right, exactly.
And, not to go off on a tangent either, but I'm wondering if they're bringing in Supergirl, are they also going to bring in Astro?
Well, I'm wondering if she even exists in a world where Superman exists. Because if her TV show is supposed to be fairly standalone, it's not related to the movies or anything. Like, is she just the first Kryptonian superhero in her world?
And is she in the world of Arrow and Flash?
She is supposed to be. Like, Greg Berlanti, the showrunner for all these shows, had it written into his contract that Supergirl has to be allowed to cross over with Flash and Arrow.
Which is cool, but now I'm getting weird. Like, I don't understand why different network. Like, why wouldn't just a network? Well, I guess you wouldn't want to be a network of all super. So fine, CBS, yeah.
Well, I mean, CBS does own CW, and I think this is probably trying to steer a younger audience to CBS because they have quite the reputation.
Well, really? Well, they're
the crime procedural baby boomer network.
Yeah,
they are. They're the Murder, She Wrote, but no longer. But
NCIS,
like
CSI,
and all those other things.
Yeah,
we've been joined in the studio, but
it's supposed to be a procedural show, right? Like they're going to take a procedural,
because it is still on CBS
aspect to it. Yeah,
well, that's a good point. If it's
which I don't know.
Yeah.
So Justice League.
So Justice League. Right. So back. It was a thing. It happened.
So we get towards the end of the first episode, and that's when we start seeing video coming over from the Justice League universe of another team of superheroes.
This is straight out of like The Man in the High Castle,
which I still haven't watched.
I still haven't seen that yet.
Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So they realize that they're not like the only universe, and that in other universes, people are still alive, things are transpiring differently.
Because they're so magnanimous, they're going to help them out.
Yeah, I wrote that down in my notes. It's like, why do you have to go and fuck with somebody else's universe? Why can't you just leave well enough alone?
Because complete power over one universe is not enough.
Right. More power. You got to have, like Tim Allen says, more power.
Well, it isn't really clear because they're like, oh, yeah, let's go help them. And then they go in and do... They don't help them.
They don't help them. They screw everything up.
But I have a quick thing. I have a notes here about dick moves that I saw. And just dicky things that they all did. And one of them was, I love when, Superman's talking on his date.
Right.
And Batman calls and he's like, hey, can I see you? And he's like, no, I'm busy. He's like, no, now.
Oh, I know.
and Superman gets up and runs. I was like, excuse me? Okay.
I mean, Superman like, that date was not going well for Superman anyways. Well,
Superman was like, Superman looks over at Lois Lane and he's like, my real girlfriend's calling me. Gotta
go. Now.
Well, Batman's just been hanging out in his cave. He really doesn't have anything to do.
Right.
He's so fucking emo. I mean, at some point, I love Batman. I love the Batman character, but I'm kind of like, dude, have a party. Smile, have fun.
Like, you've got all the money in the world. Like, enjoy it.
And it's all based on my mom and dad were killed. Suck it up.
The whole thing with Batman is he needs his villains in order to justify his own existence.
And now he doesn't have them.
That's why he can't ever kill them, because then that would deprive him of a reason to exist.
Right, and the grittiness of Gotham is what helps fuel his existence as well. Like, yeah, even if he does lock up all the villains he's got, whatever is happening in Gotham, the rottenness of Gotham is producing more. So
it still creates more villains for him to fight. And now that Gotham is like cleaned up and looks just like Metropolis.
Right, Sector 53 is clear. Sector 17 is clear. Like, they've got it. They've got this all under control.
He's got nothing to do except sit in his Batcave and apparently invent a machine that lets him travel to alternate dimensions. Like, I know he's smart, but come on.
Is he Mr. Fantastic smart? Because that's what he does.
Wow. Now that's a deep pull. That's a deep pull.
No, I was thinking he started his own little Stargate program down in his basement.
Right. Like he's like, well, not only can I get live video from, like, okay, how does that work? Not only can I get live video from the other dimension, but yeah, sure, we can just go there.
Well, he probably figured out the video first, and he's like, oh, these other places, how would I visit them?
Yeah.
And then he starts building machines.
Yeah, but I love how he does, like, the pop-in from an entire other dimension. No phone call, no, hey, you guys are the same as us.
Right. But then, ironically, he doesn't go to that universe in this episode. He, talks about it.
He's over
Everyone else goes, and then he's the guy that stays behind. Yeah.
Right.
To guard the prisoners.
He'll mind the store.
Right.
All right, so I love that the second half of this brings in Doomsday. Which I'm like, okay, like if there's any threat that these Justice Lords are going to have to face, like Doomsday would kind of be it, right? Because Doomsday kills Superman.
Right.
It's kind of like a big deal.
Kinda.
Did Doomsday talk?
Did they even name him in the episode?
No, they didn't. I didn't know who he was.
In the comics,
you're supposed to know who he is.
It was weird that he spoke. I felt like he didn't speak in the comics.
He wasn't as chatty in the comics. He was just more like kind of like Hulk Smash. He was just Doomsday will kill you or something.
Yeah, suddenly he's like, no, I have a mission. I'm from another planet.
Yeah,
I'm talking to you. I'm
here. He's having a whole conversation over tea and scones.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a press conference. They're going to discuss their issues.
So, okay, but this kind of like brings up a question that I had, because clearly they've thought about it, because they're like, okay, we're gonna, like, once we defeat him, then they'll all bow down to us. So at this point, is the Justice League just toying with him? Because ultimately, Superman does his lobotomy trick, which he could have done at the beginning.
Well, and I think they said at the beginning, because they're trying to pass themselves off as the Justice League that exists here. So what would they do? They would beat the bad guy.
Yeah.
So they've got to make a show of beating the bad guy.
I agree, and I thought about that. I mean, look, Wonder Woman saved a train.
In high heels.
Yeah. No, but you're right. I did think about that, too. But
I mean, I think she still would have saved the train, like even the Justice Lord, because I thought about that. Are they going to just be cavalier with the consequences of what they're doing, almost like it happened in Man of Steel, right? Where there was like so much collateral damage. You're like, wait, who are you actually saving by doing this?
I feel like everyone's just kind of following Superman's lead. He's the one that decided they were going to do, any means necessary to get to the end. And you see him, he's completely cavalier about the destruction. Like, he blows up a couple buildings and he's still just focusing on Doomsday. It's not like he's looking around to see what's going on around him. And everyone else is just kind of cleaning up around him.
Right.
But I think, I read something, I think it was an interesting distinction. There's another alternate universe, the Crime Syndicate, which is all of them, same characters, just straight up evil. Wonder Woman, etc. And they just did that in a thing called Forever Evil in the comics. And there's a big distinction between the Lords and the Crime Syndicate, which, again, Crime Syndicate is straight up evil, but the Lords were good and they just turned to this different way of justice. Like, it's a very fine line, but I thought it was an interesting distinction.
It's the law versus the law and order and the order, right? Because you can have law and order, or you can have order. And they're like straight order, right? Where they're like, it doesn't matter that you're just upset that you didn't get the thing that you ordered, or the food was crappy and you had bad service, and you're just like mad about it, but we're going to show up and arrest you and lock you away because you're causing a disturbance.
Right.
Well, let's face it, the guy was kind of a douche anyway. I mean, we see that every day in LA. Sure. I mean, any fucking producer from any TV show, you see him go off, do you know who I am? And you just want someone to come in and take him away. And you're like,
I don't know who you are, but I want to punch you in the nose.
Yeah, exactly.
But Superman says it at the very beginning, and I let it get this far because of the law and the will of the people. So those are the two things he's going to ignore from this point forward for the greater good.
The greater good.
The greater good.
Whatever that is.
It's whatever he says it is.
Yeah. Right.
But I remember back when I first took whatever political science 101 or whatever that class was called. But anyways, the professor there talked about, there's a spectrum from absolute freedom to absolute order. And it's where you decide to draw the line on the balance. Like, you give up freedom for the sake of order, and you give up order for the sake of freedom. And it's, in the Justice Lords universe, they've decided order is going to have priority over all else. So we're not having elections and we're not having protests, because we're worried about order.
And then there's the question of, does power corrupt?
Yes.
Where, like you said, like the Crime Syndicate, they're corrupt, but isn't that, aren't the Justice Lords corrupt as well, in that they've let their power sort of go to their heads and excuse what they're willing to do?
But they still have a justification, as opposed to the Crime Syndicate who's like, screw them. but that's the weird fine line distinction. But you're right, it's generally the same impetus.
But what's more disconcerting, because I could almost buy the evil twin version a little bit more than I guess it's the plausible too, because you could see a scenario in which this would all kind of happen, where one of them would slip and say, nope, you know what, we're going to do things this way from now on. And then I guess because it's Superman, everybody else kind of has to go along. But I almost wonder, wouldn't there be some pushback from one of them? And I kind of wanted them to be like, well, we saw what happened to the Flash, and it wasn't that Luthor killed the Flash, it was that Superman did, because he stood up to him.
Wait, really? Was that in this show? I missed that.
No, but it wasn't. I don't think it was, but I thought that would have been an interesting twist.
But I assumed
that Flash died before this. Otherwise, there's nothing preventing our world from unfolding this way. And not even that Luthor directly killed him, but that he was somehow responsible for his death. And that's just the little push that gave Superman the, you know what, I did like being the hero, but you're a greater threat to the world. So I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get rid of you.
But I think it would have been an interesting twist to have it be that it was Superman who killed the Flash, because the Flash resisted.
Right.
He's like, I'm not going to go along with this plan of, totalitarian domination of the world. That's not what we're about. And Superman sets it up that...
I agree. That is the more interesting story.
That the Flash has to be killed.
Yeah, but we're not going to see that on a Saturday morning cartoon for kids.
No, but we could see it on one of the DC animated movies, because we've seen those are not geared towards children.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we are saying, even this show, we're really reading into it and deeper, and we have a knowledge of this larger universe, but this show is touching on big things.
It's got some tentpole subjects.
Even this Saturday morning thing,
So to lighten it up a little bit.
So the entire Justice League is locked up in Batman's dungeon.
In Batman's dungeon, and they got, like, what, a red sun on Superman to keep him under control, right? And then I'm looking at it, and they have, like, the electrodes on the Flash, and apparently, in order to control him, they have to have 2 electrodes on each one of his nipples. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Where else are you gonna put them?
Right? They're like right on his nipples. Like he even looked down, they were right on his nipples, and I'm like, so I guess that's how you read his heart rate.
Well, they get chafed when he runs.
Yeah, he runs out of band-aids to put over him. Hey, I've run long distances, and it's painful.
You got a band-aid.
You have to band-aid that thing. You have to shave and band-aid.
You could get those little nipple guards. They sell them. They're specifically designed to prevent your bloody nipples.
Oh God, yeah. And when you run a marathon, it's not uncommon to see people at the end of a marathon with like bloody
Blood
nipples
running their shirt.
down their shirt. It's really gross.
Yeah, when I first started running, like I'd read running blogs and stuff, and yeah, they showed pictures of that all the time.
Ugh.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of other stuff that you have to take care of before you start running that you would have never thought of. All sorts of chafing and other things that you have to
Runner's
be careful
trots.
for. Oh my gosh. Runner's trots. I remember those.
That's why the Flash has a great uniform to take care of all those things.
All that thing. No friction.
Do you see?
No friction. He's fine.
It's been Cisco'd. It's fine.
It's been Cisco.
I love that they were like, they're all in lockdown in this cartoon, and then Batman leaves and they're like, hey, what's up? How's your jail? Like, they're just like talking. I'm like, why are they talking? Like, I wouldn't let them talk. But
like,
apparently so.
Seriously, why wouldn't you soundproof those cells?
Right.
That's poor planning. When I am an evil supervillain, the cells will be soundproofed.
Yeah, I have like a list of 200 things of when I am the evil overlord.
Right. There will be like an entrance exam for all of my henchmen. I won't put outside timers on any of the bombs.
Right, exactly. Or at least fake it.
Right.
You need to have sharks with laser beams attached to their frickin' heads.
With frickin' lasers.
And if I have a gun turret, I'll make sure you're not allowed. You
It
won't be
doesn't
able
turn
to
all the way to face
all the way
inside of the
around,
compound.
Right, exactly. You've read the same list.
Yes.
Apparently. Yeah. Because I freelance on different jobs. For a while there, I would have that list on the door to my office and every job I would go to. And it was great because I could always tell when somebody was approaching the door because then all of a sudden there'd be a pause as opposed to them just walking in.
It's a long list.
Yeah, it's a long list. So it gives me time to like pretend like I'm working. So that was fun.
Have we talked about the whole episode? Did we mention that there is an entire, like, insane asylum full of villains that Superman has lobotomized?
Well, that's
right.
That's in part 2, once they get out.
Yeah, that was creepy.
But, you know, the Joker was still kind of creepy Joker.
And they're all so happy.
And they were all happy, and there was... Oh, and I love that Poison Ivy was outside, just hanging out. Yeah. Please don't pick the flowers.
Well, and it's like, you know, they're clearly well cared for. They're not being abused or anything. It's just they've been lobotomized.
Right.
So here's my thought. Why is that so wrong?
Which is why
Seriously,
you could be a Justice Lord.
Yeah, I could totally be a Justice Lord.
Justice Lord Wilfredo.
Because I'm like, why would that be so wrong? I mean...
The Patriarch of Rum.
Yeah, the Patriarch of Rum. I'm really thinking, I'm looking at this going, okay, our Justice League could learn a few things from the Justice Lords. Come on.
But
because otherwise...
it's all about, like, how far do you let it go? Because, you know, they started off with, well, of course we should be lobotomizing these villains, because every time we just lock them up, they escape, and then they escape and kill people. So all of that is on us. So we need to come up with a more permanent solution to this problem. And it's just
lobotomizing would be fine.
Right.
And by the way,
it's just those little steps along the way to being complete dictators.
But was it complete? Because the Joker was still a little bitch, wasn't he? He was like, oh, sorry, Wonder Woman was supposed to say that.
He's innately dickish.
Like,
he can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he was lobotomized, but he was given instructions. So he followed his instructions.
Well,
But, I mean, did you guys notice how Arkham looked so pretty and pristine with the flowers
Well,
and the roses?
yeah, if you put an evil villain in charge of maintaining the grounds.
I love that not only did they lobotomize the ventriloquist, but also his doll.
That was funny. That was really funny.
I'm like, okay, that's like a horrible, horrible sight gag, but it still works.
I missed that. That's funny.
And can we talk about the power disruptor that they have?
Please do.
Oh, at the end?
Right, at the end, that was very phallic.
That's why they had to get Batman on their side, because he doesn't have any powers to disrupt.
Exactly.
Well, okay, first of all, we have the whole thing where everybody in the Justice League can fly except for Batman and the Flash. And it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter the Flash can't fly because he can get there no problem. But Batman still has to take a bus or, hail a cab,
A bat bus.
The bat bus, whatever, Everyone's like, and we're off. And he's like, guys.
Well, we talked about it last time we did one of the episodes from this cartoon, like the plane crash, and it's like, why are they all so upset about this? They can all fly.
Yeah, except for Batman.
What did you think of the Batman versus Batman fight in the Batcave? I was confused because every time they cut to one of them, it wasn't the Batman that was talking. I was like, wait, who's talking now? I don't know.
No, I had the same problem. And as an editor, I had a big problem with it. I'm like, I'm hearing the other guy talk. I want to see the guy who's talking on camera. So I think they did that for being able to do Japanese voiceovers and stuff.
Right, they did it on purpose so they don't have to worry about syncing up lip movement.
Exactly. Because it's so important and animated like this.
Right. The mouth is either opened or closed.
Pretty much.
I did love that when it all blew up, they all faced off against themselves.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you switch that up?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be like...
Yeah, but that's how you end up with, Wonder Woman versus The Flash, which is not going to work out for one of them.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Wonder Woman in this episode used a power that was started in the TV show where she threw her damn tiara and knocked some shit out. And I was like, nice! I love when she does that boomerang tiara.
It's kind of like She-Ra,
Oh, it's so out of nowhere, but it's awesome.
Well, that's because the alternate universe, she didn't have a tiara.
She didn't have one, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Well, she had that short hair, which couldn't hold it.
Right.
Exactly. I told you guys, it was a stupid haircut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Haley's right.
Yep.
Blue Martian fight? What the hell was that?
And they both
turned into some blue. I'm like, what is this?
It turned into Japanese anime real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. That's how they maintain their international audience.
We could sell it in China.
It was hot.
Hey, have we done any puns yet? Because we're still legal in China.
Oh gosh. We
Oh,
haven't even done any poop jokes yet. Jeez,
and we
guys.
know poop jokes.
This might be the one episode about a commentary on a totalitarian state that it happens they could actually listen to in China.
So we're not going to make poop jokes, and we're not going to make puns, so that they can listen to.
You already did the runner's trot. So
we did. We did do runner's trots. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. We're good. We're good on that. But no puns on this episode, so they can listen to us in China, and everything will be fine.
Right.
We're not banned in China for that reason.
Well, they need to listen to this about the whole totalitarian dictatorship
right
thing going on. So.
Don't do
and
it,
North Korea.
Elections are not just a fall tradition; they are a right.
They're one of those fall traditions that no one really takes part in, so it's fine.
Yeah, or if you do it, at least have some amazing costumes.
Absolutely.
We're willing to sacrifice all of our freedoms if our superheroes can look that good.
If you're looking good, yeah.
So, does the Flash end up making the difference? Because, again, we're a Flash podcast, so...
Yes, absolutely.
What do you guys think about the Flash's role in all of this?
I feel like it's important to understand what his role in the larger DC verse is, which is he is the good guy. No matter what else is going on, he's a good guy. And without him, everything falls apart.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful life, Flash,
Right.
I agree. They had that weird comics Blackest Night event a couple years ago, and they all got the spectrum of the Green Lanterns, all the heroes actually plugged into, and Flash plugged into Hope, which I thought was really interesting about his character and, and who he is. I think that's dead on. I think exactly what we're talking about, that he is that for that universe.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Yeah, and I think that's what the TV show has done so well, bringing that sort of spirit into his character and into that show. I think it does a great job. Definitely.
Because, we've said before, he's existing in a smaller universe than the Justice League cartoon or something like that exists in at this point. But he is still the conscience of the universe. He's always the good guy. We've got Arrow, who's willing to take a darker turn than he is, but he is the good guy.
But I love the fact that he's the good guy without being like, hi guys, I'm a good, like the little Boy Scout next
like
door.
sickly
He's not
sweet.
Yeah. He's just like he's common sense good guy. He's not like sickly sweet where you're just like, just shut up already.
Well, he's a hero. I mean, in a world where Batman dominates as grim and dark, I mean, he's that opposite, in which strangely better than Superman in a way.
Right.
And I think he's awesome. And that's why he endures. I buy Flash every week at the comics, and only because of exactly that. It's sometimes, his character. I think he's great. And yeah, again, the show's done a great job bringing that forward.
Okay, does anybody else have any more notes?
We didn't talk about the fighting the Superman replica androids.
Oh, yeah.
Which only say like 2 lines.
I forgot we had androids in this episode.
Yeah, they throw some weird stuff. That's the security at Arkham is Batman androids.
Well, it figures. I mean, who is Superman going to trust to protect everything? He's going to trust Superman.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's rather pompous of him.
Yeah. I mean, we understand this Superman, total dick.
I did like that Batman was able to convince Batman to side with Batman because he used the allegory of his dead parents.
Right.
It always goes back to the dead parents.
Yeah.
We've
My
established
parents
this
are
before.
dead.
That every superhero has dead parents. But no, Batman can't let it go.
Just
Right.
get over it, dude. But
Dude.
we saw that from the beginning, though, that this Batman was not okay with the way everything was going.
Right.
We know that Batman's the master planner. I wonder if he sent them off into this parallel universe to rein them in.
To teach him a lesson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that was his plan all along. Because we know, like, he hadn't been part of this Justice League. Why would he be like, oh, we have to go to this parallel universe to help them be more like our universe?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make sense. So I wonder if he was thinking all along, mwahaha, my master plan unfolded perfectly.
So there's that.
Yeah.
So, we've come to the closure of our little show here.
Indeed.
And
We have reached the end.
We've reached the end. And if nobody has anything else, I'd like to put the question out there. What have we learned?
Well, I learned that heat vision plus X-ray vision equals perfect lobotomy every time. Because you could see right into the brain, and you could see that little spot that makes them evil, and you can just zap it out of them. Because apparently everybody has that in their brain. if you're a supervillain.
I don't have a problem with, them taking that out of every supervillain they come across. So,
Well, because you would be a perfect supervillain yourself, sir.
I'm
Right.
telling you that because I would. And I'm telling you that only because our alternate universe heroes have much, much, much better costumes. Which brings me to what I have learned. Whether you're an alternate version of your hero or an evil version of your hero, you always have the better costume.
And if we've learned anything from this podcast, it's that it's all about the look.
It's all about the look. Haley, what have you learned?
I've learned that no matter how few people participate in it, elections are a fantastic fall tradition.
Yes. And that leaves us to our special guest. George, what have you learned?
Well, I would like to say as a guest, I have learned that the Crimson Comet podcast is awesome.
Thank
You
you.
guys are
Thank
really
you.
cool, and I'm really thankful to help me today. But as far as this hour, yeah, I would like to say there's more than one way to use a tiara. I think that's been informative.
That's fantastic. Well, we would love to have you again on some future podcast. This was a great deal of fun.
Definitely. You're welcome back anytime.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. This has been Crimson Comet, episode 18. Join us next week as we discuss The Flash, season 1, episode 15, Out of Time. Until then, I'm Haley.
I'm Lobster.
I'm Rum Daddy.
And I'm George.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, you can find all of our contact information at crimsoncometpodcast.com. Find us on Twitter at Crimson Podcast or Facebook at facebook.com/Crimson Comet Podcast. Leave us a voicemail at 423-FLASH53. That's 423-352-7453. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual host and do not represent Gonna Geek. The podcast is not affiliated with DC Comics, Warner Brothers, or the CW. No infringement is intended. The music heard is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com.
Wow. All right. Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you in some snow right now? Or?
It's kind of gorgeous outside. It's like 60 degrees and sunny.
Nice.
And I'm inside
Wow.
drinking and watching cartoons.
Oh, Haley, you have to live like I do with a very well-stocked bar.
I did, and then we had a bonfire, and everyone drank all my liquor.
Oh, this is so George listened to our last episode and he comes in this morning and he goes, "Well, I got something to ask you." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Do you guys curse on your show?" 'Cause you guys, I'm like, "Oh."
They both laugh.
The first 2 episodes, I tried to edit down to be clean, and by the 3rd episode, I was like, "Fuck that shit! That is too much work."
Are you have to still watch the episodes? Is that what you're doing?
I've got like 10 minutes left. Yes.
God bless you.
I had coffee for breakfast and cider for 11sies.
You know what? This podcast is a sham.
Either in an upcoming episode or on the YouTube channel somewhere. Or is somebody driving a clown car?
Sorry, that's my phone, and I got a text message, and it went off, and I just put it on silence.
Okay.
If I was in court, I'd be thrown out of the courthouse.
You are being held in contempt of podcast.
Yes, I am.
This is a professional show we're running here.
Although it does tie in
Cheers.
because the Joker appears in this 2-parter, so it could be. It's not totally apropos of nothing.
Absolutely. With 2 little holes in his forehead.
It's a good look.
Yeah. It's a good look on him.